Today we have an opportunity to meet our new young attorney in the office, Cameron Morrissey. He's from Northwestern Ohio. He was educated in Northwestern Ohio, and he has an interesting background, interesting hobbies. He's a member of a rock band that plays throughout Northwestern Ohio. So Cameron, thanks for being in this podcast. I think I ordered you to be here, so that's why you're here.
Thanks for having me either way.
Yeah. So let's try to talk about your background and allow people to get to know you a little bit better. So talk about your family and where you grew up.
Sure, yeah. So I was born in Sylvania. I've lived in Sylvania/Toledo for the majority of my life, with the exception of Bowling Green when I was in undergrad. My parents are both lawyers. My dad was born in Toledo, been in Toledo his entire life. My mom was born in Cleveland, came to Toledo for law school. My parents met in law school, and the story goes on from there. I have two siblings, younger siblings. They're twins. They both graduated from undergrad now and doing their own things, living their own lives. And so kind of by exposure or by predetermination became a lawyer myself.
Let's talk about your educational background, like what schools you went to.
Sure. Elementary school. No, so I went to high school at Maumee Valley Country Day School. Graduated in 2013, then went to Bowling Green for my undergrad. Between undergrad and law school, I took a gap year to clerk at a local firm, or I guess to be a file clerk at a local firm, and then went to law school starting in 2018.
My understanding is you had a love of music since an early age.
Yeah. So I went to my sixth grade kind of introduction, get used to the school kind of deal, and I was told that I had to choose to play either in band or in orchestra, and I didn't really know a whole lot about either, but I knew that I liked guitar, and so I figured strings would be a better fit for me. And so, to my recollection, I went to the orchestra director at the time and said, "What's the easiest instrument?" And she said, "Well, there's not really an easiest instrument, but the double bass has some more straightforward parts." And so I chose that, and then from there have been playing music basically my entire life.
In high school and college, you were playing the bass?
Yeah. So I started playing in sixth grade. I played pretty seriously in high school, competed in OMEA, which is Ohio Music Education Association tournaments and performances, that kind of stuff. Played with smaller ensembles, larger ensembles, and then when I went to undergrad at Bowling Green, I played in their large symphonic ensemble, which is the Philharmonia.
When did it become like fun or a passion versus kind of an obligation?
That's interesting. I first started taking lessons seriously, private lessons, I think maybe late middle school, and then all throughout high school, and then into undergrad as well for part of my degree. It became probably fun for me halfway through high school, once I had gotten through the fact that, okay, to play the bass proficiently, it's kind of homework in a way. Of course, when you're in school, you think about it as homework. And so once I started thinking of it less as homework and more as an ability to express myself otherwise, it was more fun. So I've been having fun with it for a good time now, which is nice.
So let's get to the interesting hobby. When did you start becoming interested in being involved in a band?
So I played in my very first band in the middle of high school, I think. And it was me and a whole bunch of friends in a fairly large band. I think we were 6 or 7 people. And we played one live show, but it was the first taste I had gotten for playing in an ensemble that was not double bass. And it was a lot of fun being able to cover songs and bands that you know and love. Was a really fun experience, and being able to play kind of more poppy, publicly enjoyable music than orchestral music was really fun. And so I started playing with them back in 10th grade or something like that. Stopped playing with them for a long time, and then my friends and I in law school decided that it'd be a good idea to start a band, just kind of blow off some steam, take our minds off of the law school drudgery, and kind of develop from there.
So you've been in a band the current band you're in for how long?
I'd say we started probably beginning of my third year law school, so that would be early 2021. Yeah, maybe summer of 2020 even.
What's the name of your band?
The name of the band is Horse Lover.
And that's an interesting name.
It is an interesting name. It has a story. So we started it in law school, obviously. The assistant to the dean of the law school sent out a school-wide email, the subject line of which was calling all horse lovers. And basically, she wanted to get a little get-together for people who loved horses and liked riding horses and that kind of stuff. There was no context to the email. There was no horse-related class in school, and so we never heard anything more about it. And so that was kind of the beginning of Horse Lover.
What type of music do you play? Why don't you tell us, like, who are the members of your band, and what type of gigs do you do?
Sure. Okay. So the kind of music we play is generally alternative rock, kind of on the softer side of alternative rock. There's 5 members, myself, Sam Gold, who is a fellow attorney. He plays guitar and sings.
And what type of law does he practice?
He practices in criminal defense.
Okay.
I think he's a criminal defense or public defender in Sylvania right now. Then there is Jake Cassidy, who's on guitar and also sings. Tanner Wirtz on drums. Both Tanner and Jake actually are in a separate Toledo band called the Ice Cream Militia, who've been around for a long time, actually. And then our bassist is Alex Dapkus, who of all things is a friend of mine and Sam's from high school. So the 5 of us.
What type of gigs do you play?
So generally bars, public kind of event spaces like that. So we've played at the Ottawa Tavern a number of times, Howard's down in Bowling Green, which is a super cool venue. We've played for the Filament 5K, which is an event they hold out in White House. And then we played for the Old West End Festival.
So how much time does that take up?
So we practice once a week for about 3 hours each week. And we spend more time outside of practice actually practicing and doing songwriting. You know, we like to come to practice prepared with the ideas for a song, or the basic riff, that kind of stuff, where we can workshop it together as a group.
So are most of your music covering or your own songs?
It's about 50-50 now. I think we're slowly skewing towards mostly originals. Eventually, I think we're looking to do more than just covers kind of stuff. So it's been a lot of fun.
So Cameron, as far as your music, who would be the biggest influences, and for someone not familiar with that type of music, could you explain what it would sound like?
Sure, yeah. As far as influences go, I mean, we have a lot of shared interests. So Arctic Monkeys, they're kind of like a moodier alternative rock, kind of darker, full, lush sound. The Strokes, I mean, that kind of genre of music. Indie rock, I think you can probably fairly characterize it as. So yeah, I mean, probably on the moodier side of music, it's full on like emotional stuff. Yeah.
So let's switch topics. Education. You went to BG, and it sounds like you had an interesting major. Why don't you talk about how you picked your major?
So I was a philosophy major. I knew probably halfway through high school that I wanted to do philosophy. I'm sure it was partly because my father was a philosophy major, and I liked the idea that it was a way to learn how to think. The actual substance of philosophy I think is really interesting, but it's not necessarily a practical use for that information. And so it was a really helpful way to learn how to use critical thinking, to read comprehensively, to digest complicated topics, which of course translated very well to law school and practicing law.
So you had a kind of a funny line, you knew that you really weren't going to get a job with a philosophy degree.
Yeah, there's 2 options once you graduate with a philosophy degree. It's go to law school or bust tables. So I think I chose wisely.
So in effect then, after you graduated from high school, you knew you wanted to go to law school?
Yeah. I mean, I think even maybe before I graduated high school, I had an idea about what it was. I had some exposure to it in high school, and so I knew that was really intellectually interesting for me. And if I went to law school, I think a pretty successful profession.
Okay. Let's talk about your family. You're married?
I am married. Yes, I married a year ago yesterday. My first anniversary was yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what's your wife do? And tell us about your family pets.
Sure. So her name's Claire. She does.
That's your wife, not the cat.
Yeah, that's not my cats. Yeah, they're not both named Claire. She does public relations work for the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors. She works remote, obviously, but yeah, she does majority of her work as far as it goes on social media and designing the graphics and kind of connecting the organization to its very large client base. So we have two cats, Kierkegaard and Tchaikovsky, Kiki and Chai for short. They're both mostly stray, they're mixes. They're both Russian blue, kind of, so they're hypoallergenic, which is great for me because I'm allergic to cats. And they're great. They're both wonderful to have around. I've actually had a Kiki in the office once, and so hopefully bring him back at some point soon.
Why don't you talk about like what type of stuff that you're working on, and what do you hope to do in the next couple of years? So maybe you'll tell me, so I'll give you those assignments.
Yeah, so right now I'm working primarily with Angie and Tammy in the office on discovery, responding to discovery, drafting discovery, and drafting complaints when new cases are brought in and when they're being filed, obviously. So right now that's my primary workload, though I am having some extra cases and some extra work with Mike and a couple of other projects with Wes here and there. And so kind of getting exposure to different parts of the firm and seeing what everyone else does. Then as far as things I want to get into, I mean, I think I'd like to be able to see a case, from start to finish, kind of get exposure to the pre-litigation side of things. Obviously, I'm much more well-versed with litigation than I am non-litigation. And then from there, maybe developing into a small probate practice. I think I have some interest in that, both intellectually and professionally. But who knows? I mean, I want to close off any doors for myself. If I have the ability to broaden my horizons, I think I should.
And you're talking about you're working on complaints, which is the filing of the lawsuits, but maybe explain for the non-lawyers what discovery is.
Sure. So discovery is the phase of litigation that comes pretty soon after a case is filed, wherein both sides figure out what the other side has as far as information goes. So they'll exchange written requests for documents, written questions for the other side to answer, and then of course the other side can do the same for their opponent. And so once all that information is gathered, both sides will kind of have a better idea of what the other has, and so you can proceed with the case usually on to depositions of the parties, of expert witnesses, before the case goes to trial.
And when you're working on the discovery, some of it, my understanding would be, you're just going through the file, but some of it you're actually talking in person or over the phone with the client, so trying to bond with the client and work together as a team to answer the discovery.
Exactly. Yeah. It's always best for us if we can put a face to the name, make kind of the case come alive. And of course, they know their case much better than we do. They're the ones living it. So the better, the more we can kind of get in contact with them personally, the better.
So what other hobbies or interests have I not asked you about, or what should somebody know about you that wouldn't be obvious?
I'm an avid outdoorsman, I guess if you still think that's a thing. I love going hiking, rock climbing, that kind of stuff. The more I can be out in nature and the more I can get myself exposed to it, the better. So going for long backpacking trips or going climbing at Red River Gorge or New River Gorge down in the southern parts of the country. That's all good in my book.
Well, thanks for being here, Cameron, and I look forward to a lot of our clients and the other attorneys in the community to meet you, and I think it'll be an interesting experience for you and for them. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.